The United States is currently standing on the precipice of a major ground war with Iran. Diplomatic channels are fraying, and military options that were once considered absolute last resorts are now being actively drawn up in the Pentagon. To prepare for those options, a massive military mobilization is already underway. Thousands of American troops are being deployed to the Middle East, including the elite 82nd Airborne Division, the Army's premier rapid response unit. These forces are training for highly specific, dangerous tactical maneuvers. Military analysts point to operations like amphibious landings designed to seize and hold heavily defended Iranian territories, such as Karg Island. Real American lives are being loaded onto transport planes. They are being sent into a volatile, bloody conflict by politicians who are safely stationed thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C. Amid the military buildup, former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Ventura brought specific credentials: a 6-year tenure in the U.S. Navy as a SEAL, including a 9-month deployment during the Vietnam War. During the interview, Ventura launched an attack on Donald Trump's military record. He explicitly labeled the former president a draft-dodging coward, questioning how any leader could justify sending someone else's children into combat without personal sacrifice. Then, Ventura issued a viral demand. He looked into the camera and called on 20-year-old Barron Trump to immediately enlist in the United States military and deploy to Iran. He told the youngest Trump to do something his father never had the courage to do. The interview immediately broke the internet. It took the unwritten political rule that a president's children are off-limits and smashed it against the raw, emotional question of who actually pays the blood price for foreign policy. Ventura's anger taps directly into the chicken hawk paradox. This describes a public figure who strongly advocates for war and military action, despite having actively avoided military service themselves when they were of age. This timeline charts Donald Trump's Vietnam-era draft record. While others deployed, Trump received 4 separate student deferments for college. When those ran out, he received a permanent medical exemption. A private physician diagnosed bone spurs in his heels, keeping him completely out of the military. Ventura expanded his criticism to the broader family tree, claiming no Trump has served in the armed forces in the last century. While young men across the country watched the draft lottery dictate their survival, the Trump family focused entirely on building their real estate empire. Ventura is weaponizing this lineage to make a specific point. He is using the Trump family as a symbol of a ruling political class that lacks a culture of shared sacrifice. But targeting the president's youngest son triggered immediate bipartisan backlash. Critics from across the political spectrum accused Ventura of crossing a hard ethical line. The primary defense is simple. Barron Trump is a 20-year-old college student at New York University. He's never held a government job, worked on a campaign, or sought a policy role. He is a private citizen, and dragging him into a debate about his father's geopolitical decisions violates basic political decency. There is a strict logistical counterargument. This diagram compares military physical standards against Barron Trump. The maximum acceptable height for the U.S. military is 6 feet 8 inches. Barron stands at 6 feet 9 inches, technically disqualifying him from service in tight spaces. Ventura dismissed the height limit entirely. He pointed to David Robinson, the NBA Hall of Famer who stands 7 feet 1 inch tall. Robinson received a waiver and successfully served as a staff officer in the Navy's Civil Engineer Corps before his basketball career. However, Ventura quickly undercut his own moral high ground. Later in the same interview, he pivoted to the 2024 assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Ventura suggested the shooting was a blade job, a wrestling term for when a fighter intentionally cuts themselves to simulate injury and manipulate the audience. By diving into conspiracy theories, Ventura gave his critics an easy out. His descent into political theater distracted the public from the grounded, urgent debate about military deployment he initially tried to spark. Once the talk show circus fades, the physical reality of the military buildup remains. Transport planes are still being fueled, and weapons are still being loaded for the Middle East. Ventura's stunt forces an uncomfortable question onto the table. The United States has not had a mandatory draft since 1973. So when the country goes to war today, who is actually doing the fighting? The modern all-volunteer military relies heavily on specific demographics. The physical burden of combat falls disproportionately on working-class families, rural communities, and multi-generational military households, rather than the children of the cultural and political elite. This creates a disconnect at the top of the chain of command. The politicians sitting in secure situation rooms, authorizing ground invasions and drone strikes, are almost entirely insulated from the physical consequences of their own orders. Jesse Ventura's interview tapped into a long-standing tension in American life. It exposed a system where the leaders who draw battle lines on a map rarely have to send their own children to stand on them.